Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. If you are worried about EOGs and have had concerns about how this school year has played out, and you want to know more about how to make next year different, whether we're in virtual world learning or not, you have come to the right place. Thank you so much for being with us. My name is Jennifer Huntington. I am the owner of Learning RX in Raleigh and Cary. And today I'm joined by Miss Melanie Yolardi as well. And she is going to be my co-presenter. So a little bit about me, just so you know who you're talking to, is I have two kids. You can see them there. They're 12 and 15 years old, and they both have very different learning styles and personalities. I am also a board certified cognitive specialist. I am a reading interventionist specialist and a certified cognitive brain trainer. Please welcome Miss Melanie Yolardi as well. Melanie, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Melanie, and as Jennifer said, I am the center director here at Learning RX of Raleigh and Cary. I have actually been with the company for almost 11 years now, so you can believe that I feel really passionate about what we do here and the lives that we change. I did get my undergraduate degree from North Carolina State University, go Wolfpack, and I am currently getting my master's in educational psychology degree from Ball State University. I am a certified cognitive brain trainer as well. And at Learning RX, we work with students of all ages who have a variety of reading and learning struggles. Thanks for joining us today as we share our expert insight into reading struggles.
So thank you, Melanie. How do I know if my child is struggling? So this year has been so confusing with COVID, and you may be thinking it's possibly the unfortunate new virtual form of school, or maybe it's the curriculum. Maybe the curriculum is not best tailored for the way your student learns, or perhaps could it be the teacher? I mean, this year they were all thrown into a new teaching situation. So is it something more though? What are the signs to look for if you suspect your child is struggling, especially with reading? So some signs of a reading struggle to look out for in general. Does your student avoid reading? When it comes to reading, are you experiencing meltdowns? Are they trying to avoid things and coming up with excuses why not to do something? Are they exhibiting any anxiety around reading, especially trying to avoid reading orally in the classroom? Do they have a general dislike of school? There's just no passion for learning. They're just frustrated by the whole experience. And is there any negative self-talk going on? Like, I feel stupid, or I can't do this, or why can so-and-so do it and I can't? Are they angry? These are all signs that something feels hard, because typically as people in general, if we can do something, we typically can. If we can do it, then we do. If something feels hard, then we tend to avoid it, especially if we don't have the ability to articulate why it's hard or to explain to you why I can't do something. So these are all things as parents we take into consideration. So I speak with parents a lot who say, well, won't my child just outgrow it? And how long is a reasonable amount of time to wait until we find out? So my best mom to mom advice is to listen to your mom intuition. You will never regret determining earlier rather than later if your child should indeed need intervention or support. The longer you wait, the greater the gap tends to grow between your student and their age-related peers. Those are the peers that perhaps are not struggling. So the more difficult your child will have to be able to catch up if you do not intervene early. In fact, a recent study done by the National Institute of Health shows that among children with reading difficulties, 90% of those who received an intervention by first grade go on to achieve grade level reading in school. On the other hand, a devastating 75% of those children who did not receive reading help before the age of 9 continue to struggle throughout their school careers. So 9 is typically the third grade point, right? And then 44% of parents actually wait for at least a year to get help for their struggling reader. By being proactive and getting your child the help they need quickly, the more likely they are to be able to avoid falling behind in the first place.
So let's take a look. Let's talk about the cognitive skills that are needed for reading. So this picture of the 7 key cognitive skills your brain uses to pay attention, remember, learn, and read every day. Several of these skills must work together for reading to feel easy. If even just one of these skills is weak, it can make reading difficult. The primary skills needed for reading are working memory, processing speed, and auditory processing. Let's first talk about working memory and processing speed. These 2 skills are considered gateway skills. They are essentially the doorway to your brain, and that doorway has to be open in order for information to flow in and out. Working memory is the brain's ability to hold on to information while processing or using it for a short period of time, just 30 seconds or less. Processing speed is how quickly someone can process information. It's concerned with the pace and volume of information coming at you. If either one of these skills are weak, reading can be more challenging. Students that are weak in these areas may find themselves reading the same sentence or paragraph over and over again, or getting to the end of a page in the book and having no idea what they just read. Weak processing speed can also contribute to how fast a student is able to read or process sounds. Auditory processing is the #1 cognitive skill needed for strong reading and spelling. This is not your ability to hear. This is not just your ability to hear. This is your brain's ability to decipher the individual sounds that you hear in a word, to be able to decipher and manipulate, actually, the individual sounds that you hear in a word. If this skill is weak, it is difficult for the brain to interpret what it hears correctly. For example, auditory processing is your brain's ability to hear all 5 individual sounds in the nonsense word lamp. Can you hear them? B, l, a, p. So you want to be able to hear all 5 of those sounds. Additionally, if you were to say lamp without the you would have blap. This ability to decipher and manipulate individual sounds is not knowledge taught in school, but rather a brain skill. It's actually something your brain can do or struggles to do. If auditory processing is weak, long and short vowels may all sound alike to that person. Hearing the difference between the a, I, is hard. Because interpreting sounds correctly is difficult, reading and spelling become a guessing game, and specifically with spelling. Once that student has spelled a word incorrectly the same way 5 or more times, guess what? They've just taught themselves how to spell the word wrong. But now it's their way of spelling that word. It may be wrong indeed, but it makes sense to them. And that is a difficult habit to correct. So what are the red flags to look for with early readers? Your child's primary job in elementary school is to basically learn or remember everything. As they begin to learn to read, These are some early signs of a reading struggle. Do they remember the letter names? If this is difficult for your child, then it may be an indicator that their memory or auditory processing is weak. They may need to spend more time in repetition with new information, like learning letters and sounds, in order to identify and store that information in their memory bank. Do they remember the letter sounds? Are they able to blend sounds together fluently? If they are able to identify the letter and corresponding sound, but not read it fluently, such as in k, a, t spells cat, it may be an indicator that either their working memory may be struggling to hold on to it long enough to blend the sounds together to read the word, or perhaps their processing speed or their brain's ability to process information quickly is weak. Both working memory and processing speed are important cognitive skills needed for reading. Many students reverse B's and D's at first and then are able to self-correct. If your student is reversing multiple letters and or numbers more than just B's and D's, however, it may be an indicator that there is a cognitive skill weakness. Also, rhyming is an important part of identifying and manipulating sounds needed for reading. If your child struggles to rhyme, this too is cause for concern in getting an evaluation. Perhaps they are struggling with separating the sounds in the word in order to be able to rhyme those sounds. By the end of third grade, students are expected to have mastered reading, and instead of learning to read, they should be reading to learn. And by fourth grade, this accelerates with more of the focus turned to reading comprehension. If the mechanics of reading are still a struggle, then reading comprehension is not yet a reasonable expectation. Some red flags to look for with students in third grade and beyond are difficulty spelling words phonetically. So for example, if they are spelling a word like people, but they're spelling it P-pole, then they may be having trouble in this area. Adding or leaving out sounds to words when reading or spelling, reversing sounds in words when reading or writing. So if they see or try to write the word desk, but accidentally read or write decks, that would be one of these red flags. Guessing at unknown words rather than sounding them out, reading sight words correctly but struggling with spelling them, doing great on spelling tests but poor with written assignments, well, poor spelling when they're applying it to written assignments, and then poor reading comprehension. If you have concerns, what actions should you take? Well,
so we all have cognitive strengths and weaknesses because we're people. And for all of us, we have three approaches when something feels difficult or hard. The first thing we all do is just try to compensate by working harder. If I just work harder, I still should be able to reach my goal. That's considered typical. But if the difference between the cognitive skills in my brain that are strong and weak, if that difference is too big, or if maybe there's a cluster of weak cognitive skills hanging out together, sometimes I might be giving something all of my effort and still not reach my goal. And that's when frustration sets in. And we want to avoid our students becoming frustrated with learning. The second thing we can do with a weakness is if this weakness is right here, we can try and work around it. And that's really what school is set up to do. So a teacher's responsibility is to get information into your student's brain, into their memory bank. If, though, that student is struggling to process the information, the teacher is not equipped to change how your student is processing the information in order to use it. So that is when an IEP or an individualized education plan is typically put into place. They are looking at what are the things I can do to accommodate the student. Is there a workaround? Can I try to get that information in a different way? And there are 1,000 different ways to accommodate learning struggles in school. There's a place for that. Then the third thing that we can do is we can address the root cause by identifying the weak skill, preventing academic success, and we can target it, train it, and change it, thereby eliminating the struggle from the root cause.
So, how do you change a weak skill? Well, step one, you have to know why your student is struggling. Get tested. Identify the weak skills. So in this picture to the right, you can see where this is an example of our initial testing. And if you look at the test all the names of the tests we performed down here, we've highlighted the tests that are important for reading skills. And as you can see with this student, many of those are very low. And so we did recommend our reading intervention for this client. So step number 2 is to target and train the weak skills. So let's talk about how you change a weak skill. So how do you change the brain? Well, in order to reap the rewards of cognitive enhancement, there are several ingredients that are required. For optimal results, brain training should be done in a one-on-one setting. It needs to be done in a particular sequence. This helps prevent frustration when the program is properly sequenced. It requires immediate and accurate feedback. We want to make sure that a student really has something before moving them on. It needs to be intense. And we have many different ways to increase the intensity of our programs. It needs to be focused and targeted. It needs to include cognitive loading. This is how we ensure that a skill becomes automatic, meaning the student isn't having to think about it when they do it. And then it should also be non-academic. This is what school is responsible for, the academic piece. So our programs include all of these ingredients to ensure that we optimize the results and get the most cognitive change in the shortest period of time for your children. Let's try an activity that we use here at LearningRx to strengthen cognitive skills. So I'm going to have Jennifer work with me, and she is going to show a few. We're just going to demo this activity, which is called Attention Arrows, and it helps with attention, working memory, and processing speed. So first, I'm going to turn on my metronome, make sure Jennifer can hear it. Can you hear it? All right. So for this first try, I just want you to say the colors of the arrows on every other beat.
Blue, yellow, red, green, red, yellow, blue, red, green, blue, red.
Awesome job. All right, so I'm going to go to where we have a few more rows. This time, I am going to, I'm going to try to distract you a little bit. You may see some things on the screen, just ignore them. And this time, I actually want you to say the directions of the arrow on the beat, but this time as if they're a quarter turn clockwise. Okay. And just so everybody knows, this would be an example of loading, where she's having to do one thing, but then I'm adding the metronome and distractions. All right, are you ready, Jen?
Making it hard.
Yes, making it harder.
Okay.
I'm gonna go ahead and start the metronome, and you can go ahead and start here.
Down, right, down, left, right, down, up,
blah, blah, blah,
up,
blah, blah.
Down, up, right, up,
Good.
Up, right, up, down, right, left, down, down, right.
Up. And that was an example of immediate feedback. Thank you, Jen. So that is just a quick example of the attention arrows. Other things we can do with this activity is, as she's doing a row, I can give her 2 numbers, and at the end of the row, she would have to give me the sum of the numbers. Or if I want to incorporate auditory processing into this procedure, I could say the sounds in a word. For example, I could say b, e, d, and then by the end, she would have to blend those together and say bed. So we have different ways to add to the activity to make it more challenging, and in turn, it makes it more automatic. So this is just one example of hundreds of activities we do to work on each cognitive skill. So especially with auditory processing, we have a very robust intervention to target auditory processing. And it really does 2 things. It's two parts. One is that we are improving the cognitive skills needed for reading. And the other part is that we're also filling that cabinet, the knowledge bank, with the information on the spelling and the codes, especially once a student gets to complex code. And this is where they're dealing with multiple letters that are combined together to make one sound, or one sound that can be spelled several different ways. So what is step 3? Well, enjoy reading. So this is an example, the same student that we had at the beginning of our slideshow. This is their final testing, and we do the same testing at the beginning and the end. And you can see, based on the green is where they were prior to our intervention, and the purple is where they were after the reading intervention. So again, I've highlighted those skills that are important for reading, and you can see that we've had major gains in a lot of those areas. And for this student, reading was a lot easier and a lot more enjoyable.
So now what? How are you going to make next year different? Well, the first step really is to know why your student is struggling. Don't guess, just get tested, get evaluated, and then act now. Don't wait. Create an intervention plan for your summer based on the outcome of the results. If you know which skills are weak and they are directly impacting things like reading, now you've got a place to start. Now you know what's going on in order to know what to do. And if your student really doesn't have a struggle, well, then the test results will show that too, that they're fine. So you can at least put your mama worries or your papa worries to rest, okay? But then have a plan. Incorporate measurable goals for success in your plan. Any plan without a goal is just a plan, okay? So at Learning RX, we have a plan for each student. We define measurable real life goals, whether they're specific to math or reading comprehension or attention. And we measure those goals throughout the program with all families so that we're very clear and you're very clear as to what you're seeing and what is changing. And then start the school year off with more cognitive ability. You have a chance right now to change weak skills for your students that are holding them back. And a student that feels capable is confident. And that's really our goal, for our students to want to learn, to be confident in what they're able to do with regards to reading and math and writing. So the first step, just knowing why, is just so important. So get tested. With regards to that, we want to thank you for joining us today. And as a thank you, we're offering you 2 things. Number 1, if you have some questions about and reservations about your students and concerns, just give us a call. We will give anybody a free phone consultation just to listen and hear what's going on and maybe help you craft your next step. Also, we would like to offer you $50 off our cognitive skills assessment. Our assessments can be done remotely, They're also done in the office, and these are standardized tests that you all would be very familiar with. Please give us a call. Just reach out to us. Our main number is here, 919-232-0090, or you can email us at raleigh.nc@learningrx.net. Please also visit us on the web. There's so much information about our reading results and intervention out there. And we're also on Facebook, LearningRx/Raleigh. Thank you so much for your time, and we hope to have an opportunity to chat with you. Take care.
Hi, thank you, everybody.